Harry's wife, labelled as a narcissist. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Many of you will have come across the opinion piece in Politico magazine, which stated 2022 is the year we all finally got tired of narcissists. Well, for a start, the headline probably isn't accurate because there are many narcissists that continue to entertain you. You're listening to one at the moment, of course. I think perhaps what they meant to write was that certain narcissists are identifiable and have started to become rather tedious. Those of you, of course, who are fully familiar with the behaviour of narcissists will have reached this conclusion some time ago, not only with regard to the famous and infamous narcissists that regularly cause problems for other people on a more global and international scale, but also those narcissists that you had the misfortune to be involved with at a personal level. What does this article tell us? And of course, what does it mean vis-a-vis Harry's wife? The article's by Joanna Weiss, who apparently is a Politico magazine contributing writer and editor of Experience magazine, published by Northeastern University. A little more background on Joanna Weiss tells us that she's editor-in-chief of Experience magazine and a contributing writer at Politico magazine, where she covers the intersection of politics and culture. And she was a columnist, television critic and political reporter at the Boston Globe for 16 years, and started her career covering Louisiana politics for the Times Picayune of New Orleans. Her writing has appeared in The Atlantic, Slate, The Economist, Pacific Standard and Boston Magazine, and was anthologized in the book Nasty Women and Bad Hombres, Gender and Race in the 2016 presidential election. She's appeared on local, national and international television and radio. She also writes rock songs with her unexpectedly renowned band, the Lazy Susans. She's involved in freelance journalism with a selection of articles shown on her website and has TV and radio experience, and has also written a novel called Milk Shake. So that's Joanna Weiss. Now, she has, of course, written the article in Politico, which has been attracting quite a bit of attention. And she states as follows: "It's been a good run for the narcissists. Over the past decade or so, a mix of shameless self-aggrandizement and self-confident charm has served certain people extraordinarily well, turning them into venture capital darlings, licensed merchandise magnates, Forbes cover models, social media superstars, Oprah confessors, business conference keynoters, new money plutocrats, and in one case, president." Now, interestingly, she identifies this as over the past decade, as if narcissism is something that has only appeared in the last decade. As you all know from my work, narcissism has been around for thousands of years. It may not have been called narcissism, but it's quite simple in terms of looking at the behaviours of certain individuals throughout history to see where narcissism has been prevalent. Ms. Weiss goes on to name Elon Musk, Sam Bankman-Fried, Ye, known previously as Kanye West, Elizabeth Holmes, Harry's wife, Donald Trump. All of them used attention as currency and ego as fuel, and were rewarded for a time with what they craved. We've drawn to people who love themselves. She therefore lists those individuals and labels them all as narcissists: Elon Musk, Sam Bankman-Fried, Kanye West, Elizabeth Holmes, Harry's wife, Donald Trump. Well, as you know from my work, I have explained that Donald Trump is one, Harry's wife is one. I have raised the question as to whether Kanye West might be one. People have asked me about Sam Bankman-Fried. People have asked me about Elon Musk and Elizabeth Holmes. What I would say is that she's certainly not identifying anybody there who is an empath. She continues by stating, but somewhere between the 5th and 6th hour of Harry and Harry's Wife, the new Netflix documentary series, produced by the former Duke and Duchess of Sussex and filmed at their California mansion, which suggests there is no one more in love, no one more socially conscious, no one more aggrieved. My natural sympathy for the couple started turning to irritation, and it occurred to me that ego has its limits. And it struck me that the overreach that led to the Sussex's critically panned mega-series is the same impulse that turned Elon Musk into a terror on Twitter, that prompted Ye to up the ante of outrageous behaviour until he crossed the line into blatant anti-Semitism, that sent Bankman-Fried from the top of the world to a Bahamian jail. Some of these turns of fate are more dramatic and complete than others, but once we tally up the losses, it could be that 2022 marks the year our love affair with narcissists started to falter. Many of them met this year with declines in fortunes, falls from grace or newfound public scepticism. Many seem to overstay their welcome in the public glare, and if this is the moment when we start to crave boring public figures for a change, well, to a large degree, the egotists did it to themselves. Maybe they couldn't help it. There is some accuracy, of course, in the observations that Vice makes there. The fact is that certain narcissists, because of their need for fuel and the assertion of control, become basically media whores. You can't look anywhere without seeing their face plastered somewhere, their rictus grin appearing on another interview. They are overexposed, and thus people start to become sick of them. Of course, there are plenty of other narcissists out there that people are still entertained by, people still actually like, and why not? They're entertainers, sports individuals, creators, entrepreneurs, innovators that make people's lives ostensibly more exciting or more interesting without having to get up close and personal. It's quite the case that certain narcissists are being exposed and have started to falter as a consequence of their own exposure, and those individuals engaging in behaviours which show that they're not the interesting, nice person that many people thought that they originally were. The article continues. I think right now people are getting sick of it, said John P. Harden, a political science professor at Ripon College, when I tested my theory of narcissism's limits to him over the phone. I reached out because Harden studies narcissism in politics. For a 2021 paper in International Studies Quarterly, he reviewed detailed surveys of presidential historians, correlated them with psychology research, and created a kind of narcissism index for US presidents up to the early 2000s. Toward the bottom were Jimmy Carter, and that's because Carter's an empath, George H.W. Bush, and Calvin Coolidge. At the top were Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Theodore Roosevelt. Harden's theory is that ego can drive history. In international conflicts, a narcissistic president is likely to fret about being disrespected. Well, in effect, a president who is a narcissist needs to assert control, of course, and disrespect is a threat to control. Will also threaten opponents and act unilaterally, ignoring advisors or allies because of their sense of entitlement and their belief that they know better than anybody else. Narcissism can be a clinical diagnosis, Harden told me, but social scientists define it as a personality trait. It shows up on a spectrum. Here is where I disagree. As I've explained, everybody has narcissistic traits, but narcissism itself is not on a spectrum. You're either a narcissist or you're not. And if you're not, you can have varying degrees of narcissistic traits alongside empathic traits, but you're not a narcissist. When you are a narcissist, you have different types of narcissist, but you're all just as much as a narcissist as another narcissist, i.e., no emotional empathy, the necessity of control, the need for fuel, character traits, residual benefits, engaging in manipulations. Yes, the nature of the manipulations may alter. A facade may be used, others do not. Some people's narcissism is more obvious than others. The fury may be heated rather than cold. It might be a mixture of cold and heated. And thus there are lots of differences between narcissists, but there are many things that they have in common. The article continues. All of us have some degree of self-love, which probably explains our behaviour on Facebook and Instagram. I would refer to it as narcissistic traits. But the people Harden calls grandiose narcissists, or at one point in our conversation, charismatic attention hogs, stand apart. They believe they're the absolute best at what they do. It's not just grandiose narcissists that believe that. They go to great lengths to protect and defend their egos. They strive to be unique and promote themselves energetically. As you know, I don't like the term grandiose narcissist. There are grandiose behaviours, But the term grandiose narcissist is unhelpful. Watch my video about grandiose narcissists to understand why. The article continues, that's the story in a nutshell of Harry and Harry's wife, who at first seemed uncommonly savvy for the way they've managed their public lives, breaking free of British royal misery, then cashing in spectacularly on the drama. In 2020, they inked a reported $100 million development deal with Netflix. In 2021 came their blockbuster Oprah interview and a reported $20 million advance for Harry's tell-all memoir, Spare. Their current Netflix series premiered to high ratings and explosion of media think pieces. Made you look. Part of it is chilling. An up-close look at the British tabloid press, complete with heart-wrenching footage of Harry's mother, Diana, hounded by paparazzi. But the legitimate complaints are wedged between glamour shots, from footage of Harry's wife getting fitted for ball gowns to a vast collection of flattering photos and videos they took during their royal exit, apparently preparing for a photogenic tell-all. Even sympathetic critics have groused that there's little new here beyond the vanity. In The Guardian, Marina Hyde compared the couple to a pair of ancient mariners with a TV contract, condemned to tell their tale to everyone they meet. And as I've explained to you, that's because of Harry's wife's form of narcissism with the necessity of asserting control through this victim narrative and the pity plays, and with Harry, he's firmly lashed to her and has swallowed the Kool-Aid. The article continues, if the Sussexes' addiction to the public eye is benign, they seem tiresome, but genuinely well-intentioned. Well, Harry's wife thinks that she's well-intentioned, but of course we can all see that her behaviours are not. Just ask her family, ask the staff who've been bullied, ask the people that were friends and then have been left high and dry by her. A narcissist's constant quest for eyeballs and acclaim can get a lot more dangerous. For the worst of it, see Ye, whose perennial need for attention has evolved from outbursts at award shows to wearing White Lives Matter t-shirts and making anti-Semitic comments on podcasts, social media platforms and TV show, losing in the process a lucrative Adidas contract and what was left of the public's goodwill. Necessity of assertion of control looks to be high there. Provocative behaviour, absence of emotional empathy for those affected by the things that he's saying, showcasing and attention-seeking, the need for fuel. Further cautionary tales see Elizabeth Holmes and Sam Bankman-Fried, who won over investors by creating myths around themselves. Young geniuses in signature clothing, she the black turtleneck, he the cargo shorts. Smarter than the skeptics and the experts. Holmes, through her blood testing company, Theranos, was going to change medicine. Magical thinking, grandiosity. Bankman-Fried, with his cryptocurrency exchange, was going to upend finance and philanthropy. Grandiosity, self-absorption. The more adulation, fuel, they got, the more dramatic the fall. Bankman-Fried appears to have been running a garden-variety Ponzi scheme. This month, he was indicted for fraud and money laundering. Holmes hid the fact that her technology didn't work from investors and consumers. Deceit, lie. This year, she was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 11 years in prison. At her sentencing hearing, US District Judge Edward de Villa pondered why she'd done it. Was there a loss of moral compass here? No, she never had one to begin with. Was it intoxication with the fame? It was all because of her narcissism that compelled her to assert control by the telling of lies, to seek out fuel on a massive scale and the residual benefits and character traits that go with it. Investors are probably asking similar questions of Musk, who was recently dethroned as the richest man in the world. Musk has always been a volatile public figure, but his stewardship of SpaceX and Tesla gave him an aura of hyper-competence. Then he took control of Twitter, firing staff and picking fights as his brand and businesses suffered. Twitter is bleeding users. Tesla's stock was down nearly 30% in December. Musk has gone from iconoclastic role model to popular punching bag. It's amazing, the British broadcaster Sean Cavini tweeted at him after a recent eruption, how you managed to be, on the one hand, one of the most powerful people in the world, and on the other, a massively needy attention-seeking tool. But Harden says the need to constantly up the ante, seeking more attention even if it's self-destructive, is part of a narcissist's nature. These people have this hyperactivity, this constant need to do something, filtered through this inflated self-view, he says. They draw the spotlight, attention wanes, and they try to do it again. In essence, of course, this is, as you know, linked to the pursuit of the prime aims. And with certain narcissists, because it's focused on the moment, it doesn't matter the self-destruction that follows, because it's the necessity of getting that control in the moment and the fuel associated with it. The article continues, maybe that explains the Trump NFTs, which put an outlandish cap on a not-so-great year for the 45th president. It's been a rough stretch between the January the 6th committee hearings, New York Attorney General's investigation into his company, and the Justice Department's raid of Mar-a-Lago. But nothing was worse for Trump than the midterm elections, when his chosen candidates almost all failed, and he lost his claim to be an enduring political kingmaker. If Trump is no longer invincible, his allies of convenience finally have reason to ignore him. And for Trump, there's nothing worse than being ignored. You could actually, what the writer should put there is, and for a narcissist, there's nothing worse than being ignored. The Washington Post recently reported that he's so miserable in Florida, without a press corps to summon at will, that an aide asked his friends to call him with affirmations. That demonstrates the threat to control by not being seen as important. On Truth Social in December, he promoted a major announcement that turned out to be a line of Trump-branded NFTs. Exaggeration, self-absorption. They looked like an artist's rendering of his ego. Trump riding a blue elephant surrounded by flying gold bars, wearing a superhero get-up with lasers coming out of his eyes. Even his allies mocked him. On the other hand, 45,000 of the tokens sold out in less than a day, whether out of devotion or curiosity, or the sense that they'd be bizarre collector's items someday. It's hard to count any narcissist out. It's not on their nature to give up the stage, even in exile. Sometimes from jail. When they want attention, they get creative. It's the public that has to decide whether to bite. In the political realm, Harden has seen cycles. After the public tires of a particularly narcissistic president, voters choose new leaders with more modesty and restraint. Nixon's resignation gave way to Gerald Ford, then pathologically humble Jimmy Carter. The midterm elections seem to match the pattern. Trump-endorsed candidates and election denialists, some of them Trump-like media hogs, were largely passed over in favour of less flashy moderates and split-ticket voting. Of course, what this writer fails to recognise is that not all, of course, of those political candidates are narcissists, but many of them will be, but just different types, less obvious, less grandiose in behaviours. The article concludes, whether people will also refrain from buying the next Sussex buck or worshipping the next business wunderkind is a story for 2023, but there are signs at least that our patience is fading. Last week before Christmas, Musk asked Twitter users whether he should step down as CEO, and 57.5% voted yes. Somebody wants quiet time, at least until the next appealing narcissist comes along. Accordingly, an article which identifies several narcissists, which includes Harry's wife, and there's going to be more about her inclusion in further videos because of the reaction to this particular piece. Ultimately, the piece is largely accurate. It doesn't understand narcissism in the forensic way that I do, but the individuals identified fit with individuals that are narcissists, and some of the observations made are entirely accurate. And therefore, this is a useful article that touches upon the behaviour of narcissists, the way that certain narcissists can cause fatigue with those around them, and identify several narcissists, which is useful for people to increase their understanding, one of which includes Harry's wife. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.